What's up, guys? Welcome back to my channel. It's been a strange week as all the top six drop points. Chelsea had a chance to go top on Saturday, but they lost to Everton, who seem to be finding their feet again after their amazing start to the season. And then Tottenham had a chance to go 3 points clear, but they drew to Palace. And Liverpool drew to Fulham after that. United and City drew 0-0, which is quite sad because I really wanted to get into that game. And Arsenal lose again. 4 games in a row at home to Burnley. And they might just be in a relegation fight. So we'll start with Everton Chelsea. Chelsea dropped points at Everton 1-0. There wasn't too much in this game, but Chelsea came into the game without a winger. They had Pulisic out and Hudson-Odoi out. And I haven't quite understood this formation or this structure really, because a couple of times this season they've sort of overloaded their attack with their midfielders, and it doesn't really seem to work. It hasn't worked the way I think Lampard wants it to, where it's like super fluid and stuff, which is odd because James and Chilwell are actually really good, but it seems like they still need Ziyech or Pulisic down a wing to really open up that wing to create from there. And that didn't really seem to happen much against Everton. Havertz still looks very, very average. And I know he's young, but anyone who comes with that price tag is going to be questioned early on. At the same time, Giroud looked okay. Werner was quite average. There wasn't too much to really look into. But I did find a really interesting stat. So these are Chelsea's fixtures and results in the league this season. They won against Brighton, they won against Palace, they won against Burnley, they won against Sheffield, they won against Newcastle and Leeds. They dropped points against Liverpool, West Brom, which that wasn't really expected, but Liverpool, Southampton, Manchester United, Tottenham and Everton. And this is the league table. Chelsea hasn't won against a team in the top half of the table, which may not be too much right now because we're only 12 games in, but it could be a worry if they don't seem to be able to pick up wins. So I thought it was a top 6 thing because this season they haven't won against anyone in the top 6, but it looks like it's all the way down to 10. And if we look at Chelsea's fixtures, they've got a lot of fixtures coming up. So they play Wolves next week, then they play West Ham, Arsenal, Villa, City. Those are their next 5 Premier League games. All top 10 teams, all teams playing fairly well. It's going to be tough. So Chelsea have quite a run in. They've also drawn Atletico Madrid in the Champions League, and one of the things I realized was they have another little bit of a hectic run of fixtures in Feb. So they play Southampton, Atletico, Chelsea, Everton, Leeds, Atletico, Liverpool. So they've got a spell of 5 really tough Premier League games right now. And honestly, Chelsea are still favourites to beat Wolves, to beat West Ham, to beat Villa, to beat Arsenal. But they're tough games this year. Southampton's a really tough game. Wolves is, West Ham is, Villa is. And that's crazy because even though the top 6 are going to be favourites against Leicester, Southampton, West Ham, Everton, Villa, Palace, Wolves, Leeds, none of those games are easy. None of them are assured wins. Every single one of those teams can cause you problems. Beyond that level of every Premier League game is hard. All these teams have shown this season that they've got super potent attacks. They've got really... I think it's an identity thing because when you watch Southampton, you watch Leicester, you watch West Ham, you watch Everton this season, they've got managers that have a plan, they have a purpose, they're putting something in place. And it's not always going to work. They're going to have patches of form, they're going to have injuries. But at the same time, it looked bad for Southampton with Ings injured, but Che Adams really stepped up. And each one of these teams has got like at least a couple of players now who can pull a rabbit out of the hat. who can do something crazy, and it's showing already. And this probably will be something that carries on. I hope it carries on. I mean, it makes the league much more interesting than it is. Yeah, with that, we move on to Liverpool Fulham. I thought it was pretty similar to the Brighton game. Fulham created a lot. They should have had a penalty. They didn't get it. VAR made a huge mistake again, but they dominated the first half an hour of the game. They created a lot. Liverpool's team, yes, still filled with injuries. They're still picking up results. They should have won the game, but a draw's not bad. They're level top. They've pretty much got a back four and a front three now. Fabinho, Matip, Alexander-Arnold's back. Robertson's still in. Alisson's back. Salah, Firmino, Mane. Jota's out for 2 months now, which is going to be another hit for them because he's really been in form. But last night's team was Mane, Firmino, Salah, Wijnaldum, Henderson, Jones, Robertson, Fabinho, Matip, Alexander-Arnold, Alisson. That's a good team. So, yes, they've been plagued with injuries and they've got a couple of really bad long-term injuries this season, but they still look great. And midweek's going to be a real test because Liverpool-Tottenham actually were playing at Anfield. And yeah, I think it's going to be a big one for whichever team wins. I was really happy that Liverpool dropped points because if they won this week, then they would have gone 2 points clear of us. And then if they beat us midweek, we would have been 5 points behind them. And to me, I still think Liverpool are favourites. I still think they're the best team in the league. And for me, my sights are set on them, keeping pace with them. And that's all. But yeah, I want to just talk about Fulham quickly. Fulham looked really good against Liverpool. They beat Leicester the other week. And Scott Parker's got them playing pretty well. They've got a couple of really good players. They've got a couple of good loanies in. And yes, they're in a relegation battle this season, but it's tight. It's close, and I think Sheffield look like they're on their way out. They've got 1 point from 12, but the rest of it, I think Sheffield and West Brom might be on their way out, but the rest of it looks like it's already shaping up for what's going to be a fun relegation fight at the end of the season. And with that, I don't want to spend too much time on Spurs this week. They should have beat Palace. Palace played really well. We scored, sat back. Shouldn't have given them so much time on the ball. And I tend to agree with Mourinho on this. Palace was really good. They pinned us back. They created a lot. Surprisingly, we played City, Chelsea and Arsenal back to back. And I never felt like we were going to concede as much as I did when we played Palace this week. So the keeper made some great saves. They deserve the point. And I feel like it's the best and worst time to drop points because everybody dropped points. It would have been a good time to solidify that top spot for another week maybe. But at the same time, all the top 6 drop points. So it doesn't look as bad. But still, I feel like these are the games Tottenham need to win if they're going to really be in the run-in come April. But we're going to have to see what happens because it is still, even though the table is kind of shaping up, you have City creeping up, United creeping up, Chelsea there, Liverpool there. It seems to be shaping back to normal without Arsenal. But I still think it's a crazy season. There's so much football to be played. Tottenham plays their Carabao Cup quarterfinal, then their FA Cup tie, then in Feb, Europa League starts again. So I still think it's going to be a little mad. But at the same time, I don't see any team running away with the league this year. With that, we get to what was supposed to be the big game this week, but it didn't really have much in it. United City, 0-0. There's been a lot of talk about Pep this season, whether he was going to stay on. He stayed on past the summer and then the contract talks and he signed on for another 2 years. There's been a lot of talk about whether Pep is a fraud, whether Pep is a flop. City fans love him. A lot of City fans think he's one of the best managers in the world. And I just think it's somewhere down the middle. No, there's no way you can call a manager who's won the amount he has a flop, especially in the league, winning it with 100 points, domestic treble and all that. He definitely isn't a flop. At the same time, I get that one of the pro Pep arguments is that you can only manage what's in front of you. He started with the Barca job, he got the Bayern job, he got the City job. Yes, he's only coached elite players and elite teams, but that's all he's had in front of him to coach. But at the same time, I think a really strong point about Pep as a manager is what's happening right now. Pep came in a City. Yes, they hadn't won the season before he came, and they didn't win in his first season. But he spent a lot of money, and apart from spending a lot of money, he inherited a really good team. He inherited a team with De Bruyne, Company, Fernandinho, David Silva, elite players. And we've reached a point now where Company's out, David Silva's out, Aguero, sorry, I forgot Aguero. Aguero looks like he's on his way out. Fernandinho looks like he's on his way out. And for a manager who spent this much money on signings, he hasn't replaced these players with players of the same level or even close to the same level it looks like right now. Yes, they have an elite squad. They've got great players. Some of his signings have been good, but for a manager who spent north of 700 million pounds on signings, he can't be in the position he is. They haven't gotten to where they want to be in the Champions League. They haven't even reached the final yet. They struggled in the league last year. They don't look like they're really going to. They're definitely not going to be in the 90-point bracket this year. They still could be in for a title shot because it's really close. But at the same time, they're nowhere near the level they should be at. So I think that's where the questions are fair. It's not fraud level or flop level fair. But at the same time, if a manager spends this much money bringing in players of his choice and he has the complete backing off the board, is it acceptable to be at this level? And I think we're going to learn a lot about him in this season and the next. If he's there next season, he signed 2 years on, because now it's his time to rebuild. He's never had to rebuild a squad, and look at the level at which he's starting a rebuild at. You've got De Bruyne in that team, you've got Sterling in that team, you've got Walker, Cancelo, Gundogan. You've got great players in that team. You're not talking about coming into what the Tottenham job was when Pochettino took it, or even the United job when Moyes took it. Even though they won the season before that, it was quite a job. He's rebuilding from a much higher level, and if he's not able to get a team fighting for the Premier League and he leaves, then it is fair to sort of say Pep's not one of the greatest managers in the world. We've seen what Ferguson did over a long period. Those times don't exist anymore, so he's definitely not going to get time like that at a club, and I don't think he's the kind of manager who wants to do that. We've seen what Mourinho has done with teams like Porto, winning the treble with Inter. So I think Pep's young. He's got a lot of time, and these next 2 years are going to say a lot about where he's at. As a team, I think City is getting back into it. They're having sort of stop-start form. They've done well in the Champions League. They've got a good draw for the round of 16. But if they are in for a title challenge, they've got to pick up some form. And I think as every season, the Christmas period is crazy, and that's where a lot of stuff turns. Arsenal lose to Burnley away, and it's a shambles. Xhaka got a red. El Neni could have had a red. Aubameyang scored an own goal. It's all going to shit. The thing I don't understand is Arteta came out in the press conference and said, we completely dominated the first half or the first 60 minutes, something like that. I think they had one shot on target in the first half. He did the same thing after the Tottenham game. He spoke about how they dominated the game. He spoke about it post-game and in the pre-match of the next game. I don't know whether he is just completely out of his depth. He definitely isn't getting the best out of these players. However poor that squad might be, they are not a team that is just above relegation. Their next fixtures, You're talking about a team who's struggling to beat Burnley. Their next fixtures are Southampton, Everton, then City in the quarters of the Carabao Cup, and Chelsea. How is a team in this kind of form gonna get through that? And I think if Arteta cannot pick up a win by the 26th, by Boxing Day against Chelsea, I don't see how they keep him on. I hope they keep him on, but I don't see how they can. Because however bad the situation is, you may have the trouble with Ozil, you may have a lot of players they want to get rid of who aren't leaving, the board not backing him to some extent, and all that. But there is no way that you can say that Arteta is getting the most out of these players and another manager. We're not even talking about an elite manager. I don't see how, even though Arsenal fans are talking about Allegri and Pochettino and stuff, I don't see how they can get these managers in. But at the same time, even a good manager at this point is going to get more out of these players than they are right now. That's all for this week, guys. If you're enjoying these videos, please drop a like and subscribe, and I'll see you next week.